Hello, everyone. Welcome to the If Ever You're Listening podcast. I'm your host, Stanley C., founder and editor of the If Ever You're Listening Substack. And today we have a very special guest all the way from Los Angeles, California, Naylon. Hello, Naylon.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, we're going to have a conversation with this fantastic artist. And many of you probably do not know who she is. So, we're going to be talking a lot about her background as well as some of the new music that she has out currently. Before we start, and I ask Naylon some questions, I have a nice introduction for her. So, I'm going to describe her music and then we'll talk more about her and her background. So, here we go. So, very few artists these days make pop music for pop music's sake, like Naylon. The Nebraska-born, LA-based indie artist is carving her own unique path in mainstream pop music through pure will, talent, and quality songs. Still early in her career, Naylon's vision has been resoundingly clear. She's here to save pop music, not dilute it, but strengthen it. Not mimic it, but bring its authenticity and catchiness to the forefront of mainstream music. Today, we catch Naylon on the heels of the release of her latest single, the empowering synth pop banger Power, out on all platforms. And with over 140,000 followers on TikTok, Naylon has an eye for successful social media marketing strategies, as well as how artists who are not attached to a label get attention in today's music industry. So I'm excited to talk to her about her music career thus far, her opinions on pop music. I'd love to hear what she thinks about pop music and what exciting moves lies ahead. So welcome, Naylon. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
No, it's our pleasure. So let's start from the beginning. So you're from Nebraska. I'd love to hear where in Nebraska you're from. Nebraska is a big state. And what type of kid were you? Were you a more reserved kid, a more outgoing kid? Kind of take us back to your beginnings.
Yeah. So I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, born and raised. Lived there until I was about 18. But yeah, I guess as a kid, I was very hyperactive. I was always like called a chatterbox in school, just like talking up and down all the time. Yeah, just kind of an all over the place kid.
Nice. And when you're being a chatterbox, bouncing off the walls, were you singing at the time? Was like interested in being a musician, or when did music enter your life?
I always loved music. When I was a little kid, I think my first performance was when I was like 3 years old at like a recital for my preschool. So I was always like dancing around the house. My mom would put on like Barney, and I was always singing and dancing and just making up like shows and just doing like theatrical things.
Fantastic. And so you're doing theater type of work and you're interested in music. When did you go from kind of performing to making your own music and thinking about being a musician yourself full time?
So I guess I always loved like the arts and I always knew I wanted to be a performer, but I didn't know how to do it like outside of just having fun with it. And I think originally probably just going to New York when I was a little kid, when I was like 5 years old, I think kind of just completely blew my mind just seeing like just somewhere outside of Nebraska where there's just like so many people and just like different things and arts and like that. I think even from that age, like I was like, how I already knew like I wanted to live in a big city someday. And so then from there, I mean, originally I just was like wanting to move, like just daydreaming all the time about being in New York or something, but obviously that wasn't possible, like being in Nebraska. So through that, my parents helped me get involved with theater, just like in the local community. And so yeah, I got involved with musical theater for a couple years and eventually started taking it more seriously. I thought that maybe I would try to, do Broadway or get on a national tour, just do something like that. But then I think in the back of my head, I always knew that, singing and just the songwriting was really my real dream. But just kind of once again, I just had no idea how you get from point A to B or C. But I think going to college actually for the first year, I was a musical theater major. And there was like a student run club there where they were looking for artists and people who wrote music and they were going to help people get a song out. And so one of my friends at school, she knew that I liked to write and everything. And so she actually introduced me to um, the people working on the club and was like, you should try this. And so through there, they actually helped me get my first song out. And we're just really encouraging it. We just put it on SoundCloud and like, but they helped me get it recorded and mixed and mastered. And so after that, that kind of really opened my eyes. And I was like, okay, wait, there's actually people like really pursuing this. And I still didn't know like what the path was to get there, but it just definitely like unlocked something in me where it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. How do I figure out some way to get started with it?
That's fantastic. Okay, so you're in college, you're a freshman in college. Are you in Nebraska still, or did you move outside of Nebraska?
No, so I actually moved. I went to a small school in Illinois. So yeah, moved out. I actually originally like I really wanted to move like to New York,
Mhm.
but my family was like, I think they were a little terrified for me. So they're like, okay, how about we go somewhere within driving distance first?
Respectable, respectable. Safe parents. No, it's good. And it's good because it was enough of a move where it felt like you kind of got that freedom and then you were able to meet people that you otherwise wouldn't have met to
Yeah.
make music and release music. So now you're on SoundCloud. I'm guessing at
Mhm.
this point the engines are turning. Before we get to what you do with this kind of new inspiration, what inspiration in terms of artists or songs were you inspired by growing up leading to this point?
Well, growing up, I mean, I think my first like big artist that I discovered on my own that really like just unleashed a lot for me was Lady Gaga.
Mhm.
I remember I found out about her at like a theater camp that I was doing, and the girls were singing one of her songs, and I was like, "Who is that?" And they're like, "You don't know who Lady Gaga was?" And I was like, "No." And I think like I had them write it down for me, and that night I went home and I went on like the family computer and looked up like Lady Gaga and I watched Just Dance. And then I spent like the whole night trying to learn the karaoke. So Lady Gaga, yeah, she was a huge one for me. And then, I mean, growing up, I listened to like Madonna, Journey, like Kelly Clarkson, Shania Twain. We kind of had like a good mix of, I guess, just different more mainstream kind of stuff. But as I got a little bit older, I really started loving like more Scandinavian like artists. So really love like Sigrid, Astrid S, Zara Larson,
Mhm.
like Tovlo, a lot of the people who just make like really just pop music.
It's funny you mentioned those artists. When I was first listening, this is background for the artist for the listener when I was first listening to Naylon. One of the first artists I wrote down that she reminded me of was Tovla. So awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, I
really?
heard.
Thank
I was
you.
hearing it. I was. It's not. She's. Yeah, you guys are both fantastic. It's all there. Okay, so that's amazing. So we have these inspirations from childhood. We have these kind of newfound inspirations when you're starting to do some personal research. And so now you're releasing music. So with this song out on SoundCloud, is it getting like spins that you didn't expect, or is like the act of it just being out enough motivation? Kind of what do you do with this moment?
I think, one thing I was really surprised about was like the amount of people who were supporting me just from the first song. Like a lot of my friends and family were like really encouraging, and I think I didn't expect that. And so I think that definitely like put, some confidence in me where I was like, okay, wait, other people, like this too. And um, but yeah, from that moment, I think just after that first song, I started because I never recorded anything professionally before. So I started doing more songs like on the piano. And then I think I got a microphone and was recording myself. And then I was trying to get things just sounding a little bit more polished, just the piano and the vocal. And then from there, I started kind of sending it out to different people. And like, what do you think of this? Or, you know, yeah, just kind of, I guess, getting more songs and seeing what kind of feedback I could get.
Fantastic. And you're getting this feedback, you're reaching out for feedback. I don't want to spoil like the punchline, but she's in LA. So we're gonna get to LA. I'm trying to figure out, when does Naylon move to LA? Do you move to LA at this time, or is there more kind of events that inspire that move? Because that's a huge move. I imagine it's life-changing. And there's a purpose behind it, but I want to kind of figure out what triggered that purpose, or is there something else that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely the first song is what pushed me into thinking about that. I don't remember exactly what the turning point was, but I ended up, so I only went to this school for a year. And then after this song came out, I was like, no, okay, musical theater, I love it, but like the music is what I want to do. And I didn't know exactly how to do it, but I ended up dropping out of that school. And I moved back to Nebraska and I started going to a different university there. And to be honest with you, I didn't ever super really want to continue, but it was important to my family. So, and I also didn't know exactly what to do yet. So I was going to school, just studying communications for a little while. And then meanwhile, I was working at a restaurant. And I just wanted to go to LA and like see what it was all about. But I was like waiting for something to happen to me. I thought somebody was gonna call or some like one of these stories you always hear about. And then somebody along the line finally told me they're like, LA is never gonna call you. Like you're just waiting for something to happen that there's a good chance is never gonna happen. You have to make your own opportunities and go out there on your own and figure it out. And that just like really made like a switch in my head and I was like that's so true. So I just booked a flight on my own. I knew one person out there and luckily she let me stay with her. It's one of my friends that I met at the first school. And yeah, I just made my first trip and I didn't know what I was doing at all, but I just started looking up like, artists that I really liked and people that they had worked with and, people on their team and everything. And I just started emailing people and messaging them just like, hey, my name's Naylon, like I'm coming out here, like I'm a singer, like here's a couple songs that I've written, let me know if you would be interested in meeting. And like surprisingly, there were a couple people who were like, okay, sure. I didn't really have any much to back me up, but people were willing to talk and meet. And I think from that first trip, I just got like inspired and I was like, okay, I have to be here. And so came back a couple more times and then finally I mentioned it to my friends and family and I was like, I think I want to move and I had saved up a little bit of money, and so then I just made the big move and drove cross country here.
Fantastic. No, that's a great tale of just persistence and taking action. You didn't let LA to come to you. You went to LA. So now you're in LA. Remind me
Mhm.
what year we're in now.
So I moved here in 2019. It was pretty
Pre-pandemic.
bad timing because I
Yeah.
moved before COVID. I had a couple months and I had just gotten settled in and started like working and then it was like no COVID happened and my family, of course, they were like, come back to Nebraska, and I was like, I mean, of course, nobody knew how long COVID was going to last for. And I was like, no, like I made it. Like, I can't go back now. Like, what if I can't get back out here again? So I stuck it out. But yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, now I want to learn more about that period because you're a new artist in LA trying to make it, and then
Mhm.
any opportunity to actually network and meet people in person becomes kind of stopped and stagnated. So at this point, are you, because when I went to your kind of social medias, I noticed a lot of it kind of starts in that year, 2019. So is this when social media starts to become a big tool of yours, or kind of when does social media take place?
Yeah, I feel like I actually kind of left out a big part of this story. I kind of always forget. So actually I first like originally started social media when I was in high school. I started posting on the app Vine when that was
Yeah.
still a thing.
Mhm.
Um, I yeah, this is part of the story I guess that I always forget, but I wanted to post like a couple singing videos because I had liked watching those kinds of videos, but I was really scared that people would see and I was scared of getting judged or maybe they weren't good, and so I just made like a fake name and posted a couple videos, and then surprisingly they got some views and likes, and I slowly started growing a following on there first. And then of course people eventually from like school and everything did find it. So I just, committed to it and changed it to my real name. But after that, then Vine shut down and I really hadn't like tried to push anyone over to like any of my other social media platforms. So I really like just kind of lost all of that I had built. And then I kind of, yeah, I stopped posting for a few years. And then around like the time where I had started making the music again is when I started posting again. And so I started posting on Musically actually before it transitioned to TikTok.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
but then Musically, I didn't really have much happen on there. But
Mhm.
then right when TikTok had switched and it had, I don't know what happened if it had been bought or whatever, but it changed to TikTok.
Mhm.
I had this like I swear I just had this feeling and I was like, what if this app becomes really big?
Wow.
And I was like, I'm just gonna start making videos for both Instagram and TikTok and like just posting them. And then I think like I feel like in a way I got kind of lucky because there weren't so many people on there when I first started posting. Um that yeah, I mean I was really there from the beginning of TikTok. And just started making a lot of different singing videos and covers and just posting them on TikTok and Instagram.
She is being very modest, listeners. She has millions of views on some of these fantastic covers. I've watched them. And so also for the bat from sort of for some context, you're not a kind of there's a type of way to describe vocals that are not very like the range isn't that big. You have a big range, like you have a big voice, a fantastic voice, and it lends itself well to kind of these like really cool short snippets because you're hitting these ranges and then you're like then the video's over and then like I look at the comments and they're just like we want so I find TikTok to be a really cool tool that you used. And um, when I kept scrolling back, I noticed how far back you go with TikTok. And it makes sense now when you're saying you're from Vine. You started in Vine, and hopefully some of those Vine people are your TikTok people. And they did find you again. I sort of like hope, but it's really, really cool that you started even in Musically when it was still that. So that's amazing. And
Yeah.
so one other thing I noticed you do on in terms of social media was you're a pop singer. The synths are there with the pop music. Like I was saying to the listener, it's very Tove Lo-esque. But then when I hear you do these live performances, which I personally adore, in like random locations, and but you're really like it strips the songs down. That's where I hear more like Sigrid and more like those type of singer-songwriter based pop singers that could sing really well, but it's also very much focused on the lyrics. And during these live performances, we really hear the lyrics, and those are very special to the song. So I would love to hear more about the inspiration to those live performance videos you post on YouTube and so in all of your social medias and kind of like what inspired that.
Yeah. Well, for like the live performances, I just have always loved like watching stripped back versions of artists, covering their own songs and just like I just love how, when you strip back a version, I feel like it's just can be a new song in so many ways. There's just things that sometimes it lets the lyrics shine differently, sometimes it lets the vocals shine differently, but I just like love rediscovering songs like that. And so I always knew I wanted to do live versions if I could do it. And then, so for these songs in particular, I really wanted to kind of find a way to match the environment to the feeling of the song. And at least for the music that I've put out right now, it's kind of the idea of just feeling like lonely in love. And so I kind of just wanted to go around different like spots in LA that brought out those different feelings for me.
Fantastic. Lonely in Love. That's a phenomenal way to describe your music. Lonely in Love pop music. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and it does make sense now when I'm thinking about all the name of all the songs that you've been dropping, which leads me to I'll transition to this and then I'll go back to another question I had because it's too good of a transition, which leads me to your music itself. So, Power is the latest song that you have out on all platforms. It came out this summer. Um, and it's an empowering song, but it also comes from being lonely. I could see that too. So, kind of take me to how do you go about first describe Power and then talk more about your songwriting process.
Yeah. So Power is really just a song about just really just taking your power back in a relationship. I feel like for me at least it's just I think I wrote it kind of about being in a place where you feel like you've lost yourself a little bit and you need to pick yourself up again and take back yourself. But for this song in particular, I started with the idea, and I think I originally just recorded a little bit on like a voice memo a cappella, and then later moved to the piano and kind of came out with a rough idea of that, and then eventually brought it to one of my friends who's an amazing producer. His name's Dex, and we came up with a first version, and I thought it was great, and we were listening to it for a little while, and then he actually decided, he was like, you know what, I want to try something else on it a couple months later, and that ended up being the final version. I felt like the production did a really great job of just matching the message of the song, which I loved. Like it just really felt like taking the power back and just yeah.
Oh, that's great. And it's in that it's all in everything she's saying is kind of like chemically in the song. At the end of the song, you'll feel more powerful. You'll feel like you could do what you need to do outside of, depending on somebody. So before this, I think I was listening to Power Back and Wrong Person, which kind of complement each other. Because you could play with those two ideas simultaneously. One thing I've seen that you've talked about in some of your clips is pop music. You're not just a pop artist, but you've written that you've posted that you want to save pop music. Sometimes jokingly, I could see, but also I'm like curious where that even joke comes from. I would love to hear your opinions on pop music right now, and either maybe why it needs saving or what you want to contribute to pop music.
Ooh, okay, dang, let me think about that.
Mhm.
Um, well, I think we're in an interesting time in music right now, especially just because it's becoming so much more accessible for, independent artists to release music and distribute. And so for that reason, I feel like we're just getting so many more like unique and different styles of music. Just all around. And so that's been really interesting to just see and hear so much kind of different music and artists. Um, but I don't know. I think for me, the save pop music thing, I think I've just seen some people joking about like we need someone to save pop music or this or that online. So mainly that's where that comes from. But also, I think I don't know. In some ways, I think sometimes people hate a little bit on pop music and it's like everyone maybe or some people want to be like have a little bit like an end of your taste or
Mm,
whatever, and I'm like I'm here to be like, you know what, I'm not ashamed, like I love it for what it is, like there's nothing wrong with that. I love just good pop music. It doesn't need, I guess, to be anything besides that. I'm happy with it just being good pop, I guess.
No,
If that
amen.
makes sense.
It does make sense. Pop music is a genre by itself. It deserves to be adored just as much as country, just as much as electronic music, just as much as hip hop. But people do kind of put it below it, like it's a lesser. It deserve it. It's you could make fun of it and you can get away with it. But no, I agree. I 100% agree. So how does your music in terms of pop music compared to what you've been hearing in the mainstream? Where do you kind of see yourself? Because I know right now we have like Sabrina's killing it, Gracie Abrams. We have a lot of these pop stars that are just like pop pop. I don't count the people that came from other genres. Then they started making pop music. They're pop artists, but they're not kind of foundationally pop artists. But you feel very foundationally pop. So kind of what part of your kind of repertoire of pop music that you enjoy, or maybe that you have enjoyed that you want to bring back?
Ooh, that I want to bring back. I think, I mean, I think kind of like I was saying before, just, I mean, I really love just kind of a lot of my favorite songs I think are from like 2016 and
Mhm.
like to 2018 and but just really like yeah, this just the Scandinavian style of music, just like old older Tovlo, current Tovlo, and then like same with, Astrid S and Zara, and I love all of them. Um, but even just like I've been listening to like a lot of Britney Spears recently, and then of course like Gaga always.
Can't go wrong. Just released some new music for those listening. I don't know if that this will be dated when I say that, but it's with Bruno Mars. Amazing, amazing. So thank you for that. So we're down to our final few questions. These are, I call them the if ever you're listening questions. I ask these to all of our artists across the board, no matter where you came from, what type of music you make, because you guys have opinions and you guys listen to music too. So my first question, actually, you just answered it, I think, is what are you listening to these days? Outside of maybe who you just mentioned.
Oh gosh, outside of who I mentioned, I feel like gosh, every time someone asks me this, I feel like if you look at like my Spotify, it's so many different artists.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think if there's anyone like recently that I've been really obsessed with. One of my friends actually, I have a couple friends who are really talented artists as well. My friend Sadie, Sadye, she's an amazing pop, kind of like dark, edgy pop artist. Really obsessed with her music. And then one of my other friends, her name is Raisha Rami, and she makes slut pop music that she calls. Big fan of both of them. And then I'm trying to think like who else I've been listening to.
Slut Pop is big right now with Nasty, with Tinashe, and like that brand is huge.
Yeah,
Brad with Charlie, so I'm gonna check her out. Check her out.
yeah,
That's a wave.
love them both. And
Hmm.
then also I'm a big fan of an artist named Ellie Dewey. She's done some music with the Clean Bandit, and yeah, she's really great too. I love her stuff.
Love that. Yeah, please shout out as many artists that you know that needs love and attention. Because that's definitely what I want this platform to be for. My question to you, I'm curious what you would say to this next question is what song of yours do you think is the most underrated or underappreciated and why?
I appreciate it. Ooh, I think I would maybe just say Power, which is my most recent one, just because I think maybe I need to get more creative with my marketing for this one. But I feel like this one I've had a little bit harder of a time getting getting the reach for it, and it's one of my favorite ones. So
Stream power, stream power,
yes, Power.
stream. No, that's good. That's a good answer. If you could change, my next question, second to last question is if you could change anything, I'll ask this, even though you're not. signed to a label, but you're in the industry, so you are part of it. So if you could change anything in the music industry currently, what would it be and why?
Ooh, could change anything in the industry. What would it be and why? Hmm, such a good, that's a good question. I don't know. Um, I would say,
Like, what would make your life easier as an artist? Another way I like to ask this is, what would make your life easier as an artist, or what do you see as like an unnecessary barrier to your career as you see it right now?
I would say like just in general, I think being an independent artist is just being an artist in general is extremely expensive. And so, especially just being independent. And there's a lot of barriers. And I think for a lot of, artists in general, and especially independent artists, I know it's like a big dream of people to get playlisted. For instance, on like, editorial playlists on like Spotify and Apple Music. And um, I would just love to see, I guess, more more opportunities for independent artists kind of on these platforms, just because I think it's such a cool way to reach new audiences and discover people.
Love that. That's the first person, you're the first person to give that example. For a change. So that's really good.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I hear a lot of people want to get paid more on streaming. Which I get, which I 100% get. But I heard it a couple times now. So I love this new advice about um, reach. Because I feel like that is your secret power is like because you were able to get a good reach on TikTok. Um, but the music industry moves so fast. How do you keep finding new ways to connect with? I don't even know how you guys always discover where the audience is. And so that challenge I could definitely see as something that
yeah.
could be made easier.
Yeah, especially because I think, as an independent artist, it feels like sometimes you're, competing with people who have a lot larger budgets for marketing and everything. And a lot of independent artists don't have um, maybe any funding at all to put into their marketing aspect of things. So I think, yeah, just if there are just ways that people can reach more audiences, and I think playlists are a great way for that.
And my last question is up to this point in your career, what is the best advice that you've been given?
Ooh, I think the best advice that I've been given really is um, just don't wait. Just make the opportunity yourself. And then another thing I think about a lot too is I think there's a quote, I don't know who it's by, but it's just because somebody says no doesn't mean the answer is no. It just means you can't do it with them. And so, you know, um, I think about that a lot, I guess, because yeah, just because maybe it's not right with this person doesn't mean it's not possible. um, just keep trying. But I think ultimately, biggest thing that's really changed my life is just having the courage to reach out to people, and just not waiting for something to fall in your lap. Going out there and trying to make it happen yourself.
Well, your career is proof of that so far, Naylon, and I wish you the greatest success. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Anybody who's listening, I'm going to drop all of the links for Naylon's website. Check out her website, but also check out her social media accounts and stream power and new music that's coming out. I guess my final thing is that's not a listed question is kind of what should fans or listeners, new listeners look out for your music? Do you have music coming down the pipeline, or should they stick with power for now?
I have a new song coming soon. I don't have a release date yet, but it should probably be within the next month or two for the next single, and then more music to come after that. Just starting to work on what the next batch of songs are going to look like.
Fantastic. All right, Naylon, thank you again. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.